Welcome to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry channel. Maynard Edwards, 33rd degree here with a very, very special guest who is a little bit nervous to be on camera, but she's going to be great. Yeah. This is Ms. Mary Ann Cole, who is the wife of our Grand Commander, James D. Cole. And so you've been the wife of the Grand Commander, you've been the wife of an SGIG, you've been the wife of a Grand Master and of a worshipful master. Was there one that was harder than the other to be, because you're almost as busy as the Grand Commander is in your current role as the wife of the Grand Commander. You guys are globetrotters.
I feel like a globetrotter, I really do. But I think when he was Grand Master, and as I was learning with the other ladies as he went through the line, when I had to host my very first ladies event, I was very nervous. I was very anxious to the point that I didn't even think I could get up and speak because I was that distressed. And just as I was getting ready to get up and welcome everyone, he came in to announce that the elections were over, and he announced that he was elected Grand Master, and he welcomed everyone for me. And that really helped me for my first event like that. Then when he was Grand Master, we visited all the districts throughout the state of Virginia, and I feel comfortable one-on-one with someone, but to talk in front of a group, it does make me anxious. And I met a lot of people that year traveling with him. And then when I had to do the ladies' lunch at the Grand Lodge the next year, I felt like everyone was my friend. So it made it a whole lot easier.
You're originally from Virginia, so or are you from North Carolina? I know because the Grand Commander is born in North Carolina, but hails from Virginia. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Well, I was born and raised in Virginia. I grew up in Salem, Virginia, and I actually met Jim at my first job. I worked for Roanoke County, and he was the auditor there.
I do have a few little facts that he shared, so I'll ask you about a couple of these. And you can decline to answer and say no comment to anything. But he says you're a sworn deputy.
I was a sworn deputy at one time, deputy sheriff, yes.
And he asked you out on a dare.
He did. He told me that he was interested in one of us, my friend Leanne, and I was Mary Ann. And everyone kept giving him a hard time. He goes, "You're always asking about these ladies, but you never ask them out." And he says, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take the next one that gets off the elevator." It was me. So there you go.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, yeah.
So you're working, so were you a sheriff's deputy? Were you out patrolling? Because you said this was your first job, so you had to be pretty young at that point.
Yeah, I was. I was sworn in as a deputy sheriff. I was the administrative assistant to the captain of the uniform division, which were the road officers. And so if someone came in and they surrendered themselves, I had to be a deputy sheriff so that I could sign their warrants. I also could vouch for the police, because what I would do is when they came in, if they brought in evidence or anything like that, I would log it in and send off stuff like that.
And then at some point, you both ended up working at Virginia Tech for a while. Is that right?
Yes, we did. After I had our son and stayed home for a little bit, he's like, "You know what? Instead of us going opposite directions, because we both went different ways every morning," he said, "Why don't you come to work at Virginia Tech?" And so I applied for a job there, and I worked in the development office where they did fundraising.
At what point does Freemasonry intersect with your life first, and then with your life as a couple? Was the Grand Commander a Mason when you guys met?
No, he was not a Mason. Actually, about a month before we were to be married, he told me he was thinking about joining the Masons. And I said, "What are Masons?" Never even heard of Masons before. He says, "Well, I don't know, but my mom says they're good men and I should talk to them." And I said, "Well, if that's what you want to do, go ahead." And I would never think that 42 years later that Masonry would have been such a big part of our life.
Well, I mean, it's only one meeting a month, though. That's the
that's what he said. Yeah.
So, and I have it on also on my cheat sheet that he asked your dad for permission to join the lodge. Is that right?
He did.
Now, what was the thinking behind that? Just, I mean, he'd obviously, knowing the Grand Commander as I do, I'm assuming he asked your dad for permission to marry you before he asked you.
He did.
But then he also asked about joining the lodge.
He did. And my dad wasn't familiar with the lodge either because our family wasn't a Masonic family. So he didn't have any opposition to it.
So, and this is a small country lodge. This is the first time that you're involved. At what point in that Masonic journey that the Grand Commander, who was then just a Master Mason, at what point did you become involved with, let's call it, lodge life?
I think the first time I became involved is when he was secretary of the lodge. They had to send out the little postcards every month to remind the people of the members. So I'd check the cards, I'd write the addresses on so that we can mail the postcards to the members.
And then from secretary, at some point, he says, you know, I want to go into the East. Was that a conversation or was that an announcement?
I think it was more of an announcement that he was going to the East. I said, well, what does that mean? Because honestly, I didn't know. I mean, secretary, I could get that, having worked in an office and everything, but I didn't know what it meant.
So he becomes a worshipful master, and then that, you know, a worshipful master's lady can be a rather busy job. Was it a busy role for you? Because you must have had small kids at home too.
Yeah, we did have small kids. It wasn't as big of a deal for me because his lodge is small. And they didn't do the dinners before the meeting. I think they had refreshments afterwards. The biggest thing that I remember being a big deal for me is when he was district deputy Grand Master. Because he said, oh, we have to go to these visits and the Grand Master is going to come to our district and we need to do a dinner and, you know, you need to take care of the Grand Master's lady. I'm like, okay, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, you know.
But so you're working, you're taking care of the kids, and you're helping along the way with these things as well. So you guys have, seems like, always been pretty good partners in all of those areas. And you know, how did you figure out that balance in between the two of you of how that was all going to work?
Well, you know what? I just did the best I could. He was really good, and he's still very good about being detail-oriented, being a CPA. He documents, records everything, puts it on a calendar. So it was easy for me to keep up, and it still is because he does that.
And then begins the journey into the Grand Line. Now, I know in Virginia, it's a few years. How did that conversation come to pass between the two? Because that is a much larger role and is much more demanding of a man's time. Again, both of you are working, got kids, and then the kids were involved in, you know, I know at least your son was involved in DMLA.
Yeah, he was DMLA.
So what was that transition like from being that deputy district grand master, which, you know, is sort of a localized position in a particular couple of counties or county or, you know, region in a particular jurisdiction, to that larger role of a Grand Line officer and finally Grand Master?
Okay. Well, we both worked. Then when he first started going, he kind of went on his own. And then once a year, the ladies would have a retreat with the gentlemen. And so I was able to take off for work to do that. And then as we were progressing through the line, you know, I became really good friends with these ladies. I mean, they're like sisters to me. They're like family. It was, I mean, I won't say it wasn't hard. It was hard because I was working full time. Kids were playing sports. He was traveling more with the Grand Line and everything. But you just do what you have to do, or you want, I should say what you want to do, because if I wouldn't have wanted to do it, I wouldn't do it. But I enjoyed the fellowship with those ladies and meeting people. And
is it true that you were one of the first female DMLA advisors in the country, if not the first female DMLA advisor in the country? You trained DMLA advisor, because for a long time, like a lot of other things in the fraternity, DMLA and everything surrounding it was a boys' club, for lack of a better term, and now it's much more open to moms and ladies participating.
I was helping anyway. You know, I take take them to the meeting. I take refreshments. You know, I'm there. I'm like, oh, what can I do to help? And then they opened it up to where ladies could be trained. And they asked me, they said, do you want to take the training? Do you want to do it? I'm like, sure, I'm here anyway, I might as well. So I did that. And, you know, when I did it, then they made a big deal. They said, oh, well, you're the first, you know, lady in our area or around that's ever become a DMLA mom. But to me, I was just doing what you do. I mean, I wasn't looking to be the first of anything,
So it was, like you said, you were already there. You just said, well, you know, here, give me the training. I'll take it. And that's the end of it.
Yeah. Then you could step in and help. You could be in the meetings. You could, you know, it was good. It was really good.
The transition from, and, you know, Grand Master, which you already said was quite a busy role, into SGIG and into, well, first deputy and then in the Scottish Rite. The Grand Commander's told the story of how he came in, and we're in the Grand Commander's office right now, and his desk is kind of right over there, and there's a chair that he keeps right next to his desk, and that is where he first sat when Fred Kleinknecht, then Grand Commander, brought him in here to sit down and discuss the idea of becoming the deputy of Virginia. So this is after he's Grand Master. It was right around 2000, if I'm not mistaken. How did that conversation go when he was either on his way here or on his way back home? And, you know, because from what I've heard, I didn't know him, but I've heard that Grand Commander Kleinknecht can be a pretty serious guy.
Well, he told me that he was coming up here, something about a finance, maybe help with finances or something like that, because that's his specialty. And so I just thought it was another day going up to talk to somebody about business and finance and stuff like that. So I really didn't know what it was. And then he came home and he told me what it was. And it made me think back when he was asked to be Grand Master, because he was asked to be, and then we went to, the person who nominated him was Alan Atkins, and we went to Alan and Jerry's house to have dinner with them. And Alan took Jim out for a walk, and they talked about, you know, would he consider being Grand Master? And then Jerry talked to me about it. When we found that out, just like when he was asked to be the deputy, the first thing we said is, how are we going to do this? You know, we both work full time. We've got a lot going on. And I said, well, you know what? We'll pray about it. And we'll see if this is what we're supposed to do. And we did, and we gave it time before we made any decision about whether he was going to be Grand Master or whether he was going to be a deputy. And, you know, it worked out that this is where God led us to be.
You mentioned that, and I know how important faith is to the Grand Commander, and I know you must share that, otherwise you wouldn't be the tremendous partners that you are. So can you talk a little bit about how your faith kind of, as you said, prayed about it, how it sort of shapes almost everything you guys do?
I'm a person of faith, and I keep faith even when things are bad. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes I can't handle pressure, but I always go back and say, you know, I'll pray about this. I'll hear God, he'll talk to me in some way. It might be quietly, it might be a sign that he shows me that this is the right thing and this is the right thing to do. And it just gives me comfort in knowing that he leads, guides, and directs us in what we do. And I pray for that. When I say my prayers at night, I say, dear Lord, please guide, lead, and direct us where you want us to be and what you want us to do. And I think that's why we're here.
Once he becomes deputy and then SGIG, again, you know, a big jump in responsibilities and a big change in the role that you play, because now it's no longer just about Virginia, but now you've joined this, you know, the Grand Line ladies is one little sort of family, if you will. And now you're in this other family that's not just in the state of Virginia or in your own backyard, like a lodge family, but now literally, as Grand Commander says often, 17 time zones, you know. So that had to be another switch in constantly meeting new folks in your life.
Yeah, it was. But you know what? When I think the first time I did anything with the ladies besides session was when they did the spring leadership conferences. I would go with him to that, and some of the ladies would be there, and I'm like, oh, y'all want to do something fun? So I'd say, hey, I'll schedule us to do this. We'll have a brunch. We'll go see this historic place, that type of thing. And we became friends, like fast friends. And we're the type of friends that we're not just friends when we get together. We talk all the time. I mean, the best thing about Masonry to me are the people you meet along the way and the friendships you develop. And these are like lifelong friends. I mean, it's just, it's hard to describe, but it's like a family. It's like a second family.
It's very interesting to hear you say that, because one of the criticisms we get from people who are outside our fraternal family, if you will, is that, oh, women aren't included, it's a boys' club. And I don't know many ladies of active Masons that would necessarily agree with that. But you might not sit in business meetings, but as we said at the start, I think you're very active, generally speaking, in lodge life. What do you view the role, and it's, I guess in a broader sense, that ladies and families play within what is a men's fraternity for, in some form or fashion?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the leadership. I know for me, before I came, I think that it wasn't quite as close as it is now. But, I like people. I like relating with people. And I like including the families, too. I mean, we took our kids along to all of his official visits when he was Grand Master. Now that they're adults and they have children of their own, they couldn't come to the installation because we had little grandkids when he became Grand Commander. But I think it's what you put into it, it's what you get out for anyone. I think ladies are missing a real opportunity if they're not participating.
I know that you have group messages and text threads and things with all the ladies on the Supreme Council, and I know you keep in pretty close touch with all of them. But you have to still be in touch with some of those other portions of the family that we mentioned, from the local level on up through the Grand Line?
Oh yeah. I keep up with the ladies in the Virginia line. I myself am in a sorority. It's PEO, and some of our Scottish Rite ladies are also PEO. So, I mean, I have a circle of friends that are PEO that are outside of Masonry. I have friends from high school that I still keep in touch with. And then I also have friends in our community that we go to church with that I still keep up with and do things with.
You've taken on a lot of the planning for, in a session, some of the ladies' events, and I know you've done that you even did some of those types of things prior to the Grand Commander taking office. You did a lot of that planning and those types of things. And you do such an excellent job at all of it. When you sit down to plan these types of things, what is it that kind of goes through your mind when you're thinking about, these are ladies, some of them are here because they really love it, and some of these ladies are being, kind of brought in for the first time, like you were when you went to your first event. So, how do you put something like that together where you keep all those different things in mind, the folks that have been doing it for a long time that you're close friends with, and the folks who are here maybe for the first time and just as apprehensive as you were when you walked in?
Well, I remember the first time that I came to session. I was terrified. I was scared to death. And I remember a couple of the SGIG's ladies came over to me, especially Pauline Moyers. And she came over to me and she goes, "Are you Mary Ann Cole?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Well, I'm Pauline." And she made me feel welcome. And I feel like, I don't care who anyone is, they need to feel welcome. They need to be part of it. And I try to think, what things would people like to do where they can feel included? And that's what I take into consideration. I tend to be more of a creative person, an idea person. Jim is the black and white, this, that. I mean, that we're clearly opposites attract, But I just try to think, what would everyone like to do so that they can all be included? And that's what I did when the ladies started traveling more. Now the ladies want to go to the leadership conferences so that they can be together. And when we're there, if there are any ladies there that are not part of the Supreme Council, we try to bring them along with us so that they can see what it's like. And we were just recently at the Conference of Grand Masters at Myrtle Beach, and the ladies that were there, we went to lunch in Calabash, and we were sitting there having a good time and everything, and we got up and we got ready to leave, and one of the ladies at a table said to Leslie Alexander from Utah, she goes, "How do you all ladies know each other? Because y'all are just like having a good time, just like, high school friends." And she said, "Oh, well, our husbands are Masons, and they're at a meeting, and so we all came to be together." And she said to the lady, she goes, "Yeah, I'm from Utah, and she's from Washington, and she's from South Dakota and Alabama." And she goes, "Wow, how do y'all keep in touch?" And she said, "Well, we just do, because we're friends." So if people on the outside looking in can see it, it's genuine.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard there's a better than fair chance if we look in your purse right now, there might be a petition for a lodge or for Scottish Rite in there.
Well, not today, but in the past, I have said that. I've said that to people before. Like, if you're interested, I can get you a petition real easy.
So what do you say to a lady whose husband is, maybe considering joining a lodge, or, you're talking with a lady who's totally outside the fraternity, and you make that recommendation. So what would you say to another, I hate to say it's just to another wife, what would you say this to another lady whose husband is maybe considering joining a lodge? What the selling point, if you will, from your perspective, not the things that we say, because I know what we say. What is the good side for you, for that other lady?
The first thing I would tell her is that it's a good organization. It takes good men and it makes them better. And they do good things in the community. They help people, students get scholarships. They help the children with dyslexia, autism, with their clinics and different things, if it were Scottish Rite. But the best thing about it is you will make a network of friends, and your husband's friends and their ladies will become your friends and ladies. It's like you end up having the same morals and values, and you can share those. And when you're with people like that you're around good people.
So you have done an extensive amount of traveling since 2019, and before as well. But every time I look at it, I'm Facebook friends with Miss Marianne, so every time I turn around, y'all are in a different state, a different country. You're all over the place, which I know has to be at this once a lot of fun, but also a little tiring sometimes. Mm-hmm. But do you have a favorite spot that you've been so far that just really blew you away, that you were excited to go to? Or
oh, wow.
I know there's been a bunch, especially recently too.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what really blew me away was when we went to Italy. We went to Rome. While we were there, we had the opportunity to visit Vatican City, tour the St. Peter's Basilica, and see the Sistine Chapel. And that was just part of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, when you think about the history and everything that's there, it was just amazing. The food was delicious, but the people were just as warm. And we were with other Masons, and although some of us couldn't speak the same language, you could feel it. You could feel it. Like, we had dinner with the Grand Commander from Italy, and there was a translator there. So for he and Jim to talk, they had a translator. Well, the Grand Commander's wife was there, and she couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak Italian. So I was sitting there thinking, now how am I going to communicate with her? So I got my phone out and started sharing pictures of our grandchildren. And just by looking at the pictures, we kind of were able to communicate with each other. And to me, I thought that was kind of special, to be able to do that. But I'll tell you, it is hard sometimes because you come in from a trip and you're tired. It's late and you're tired. And then you have to get up and do life. You have to do the laundry. You have to go to the cleaners. You have to start thinking about what are you going to have for dinner tonight? Do I need to go to the grocery store? For what do I need to pack for the next trip? But I did learn some things since we've been doing this. You have a suitcase packed all the time with the basics. And then you find out what the agenda is and what you need to pack, and you pack that. So it has been a learning experience.
Are you somebody who always takes too much, or you don't take enough?
Oh, I take too much.
I take too much too.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather, I know it sounds silly, but for men, typically they can just put on a tux or a suit and change their tie and they're good to go. But for women, and all women think this, like, oh, they're going to remember I wore this or that. And now with Facebook and cameras and people taking pictures all the time. Yeah, everybody has their favorite. I mean, I'd rather wear my favorite dress everywhere I go, but you know what? It doesn't work that way, But I try really hard just to try to pack as little as I can. But I'm the type person, like, this week I might want to wear that, but when I get there I might not, so I gotta have a backup.
Now, what is one of your favorite things about him? Obviously, you said that you're kind of the creative, and he's very black and white and things like this. So that has to be on the list somewhere. But what are your favorite couple of things about the boss? My boss.
Your boss, yeah. Well, he spoils me. I mean, every morning. I shouldn't say this because then all you guys will be in trouble. But he always has my coffee ready for me because I like special coffee with chocolate in it. He whistles. He whistles a lot. You may have noticed that when he's walking in the building and stuff. And you can always tell when he's happy and he's in a good mood. When he's whistling, he loves to pick on me. One of the things that he says a lot to me, he goes, oh, the sky's it's beautiful today. It's a Marianne kind of day. I mean, he's nice, he's considerate, he's loving. He helps with the laundry. He does a lot of things around the house, so it's good. I think the hardest thing with him being in this role sometimes is the calendar, because we're trying to get back to our permanent home, to check on the home, see the grandkids. My dad is aging, and I need to take care of him as well and schedule in his doctor's appointments and all that. So I have to schedule all that around the calendar. And to me, that's a little bit challenging and hard sometimes. But when we do get home, like the last time we were there, every time I leave, I try to have all the laundry done at this place. When I'm up here, I try to have all the laundry done. I like to make sure the dishes I like it to be ready to just start fresh. And the last time that we left our permanent home, I didn't get the laundry done because we ran out of time. And then we got home late from up here because we had to stop and do a funeral on the way. And then it was going to be Easter, and I had to go to the grocery store because I was having the family over for lunch on Sunday. And bless his heart, he did the laundry.
You mentioned the challenge of the calendar in general, and that's certainly, more of a problem for the Grand Commander than it would be for a Master Mason or for a Worshipful Master even. But in terms of being a Masonic lady, we've talked about the positives. Is there what do you see as the challenges, as the difficulties, if you will? That is it still managing that schedule?
That is a big challenge. I mean, that's a big challenge. I mean, I think the one thing that people don't realize is that he's pretty much working anytime he's awake. He never really, except when we go on a cruise and he's out of range for everything. He's working all the time at some point. He's checking his email, he's getting phone calls, different things. And to me, that part is challenging. Sometimes, as you know, he has to work late because you are doing Zoom so you can get people across the time zones and everything. And okay, I don't like to be at home alone. I don't like eating by myself. He'll say, no, make sure you go out and get you something good to eat. I'm like, I'm not going to go out and eat in a restaurant by myself. But you know what? I'm talking with my Scottish Rite friends. I'm texting,
For someone who is as, I don't want to use the word meticulous because it almost sounds negative, but for someone who is as deliberate in his approach to most things, he's a very measured person from my point of view. And you might, I think you would agree after our conversation, but when he does things on camera and when he goes up and does his speeches at the session or he's talking on the Zoom calls to people, it's very off the cuff, or at least it seems that way. So that seems almost like it's out of character for him, but he does such a tremendous job at it. And, rare is the time that he doesn't just get an absolute home run when he's doing one of those speech type things. Does he run that stuff past you, or does that surprise you at all that he doesn't have it? Like, if I gave him a script, he would laugh at me and hand it back. It would be likely what would happen.
He would. He's always been like that. Even when he was Grand Master, he never knew what he was going to talk about till he got there. And then even as we travel now and he's speaking, I can see him at dinner, like as he's eating or whatever, he's pondering and he's thinking, what am I going to talk about? And then he talks about it. Only once did I ever figure out what he was going to talk about before he talked about it.
Don't you find that to be a puzzle for somebody who's, like you said, he's very black and white, CPA, very specific about things, but to be sort of off the cuff, or at least the appearance of off the cuff?
No, he really is off the cuff. I mean, I don't know how he does it. It's a gift. It's a gift from God, because getting up and speaking is a gift. I get up and speak because I have to, not because I want to. I mean, unless it's one-on-one or that kind of thing. It makes me nervous. It makes me anxious. They asked me when he retired from the Masonic home if I would get up and talk about him, because everyone knows him as a Mason, but they wanted to know what he was like. And I said, you want me to get up and talk in front of everybody? And they're like, yeah. And he didn't know it. And thank goodness, well, I don't want to say thank goodness for COVID, but COVID came and we didn't get to do it.
You were spared.
Quickly. I was spared for a while, but it gave me a lot of time to get my thoughts on paper. And I read what I wrote, but I tried to do it without, reading. But I was pretty proud of the things that I got to say about him that people didn't know about him. And I said, you all know Jim the Mason, but let me tell you about Jim the man. And I talked about him. And just to sum that up really quickly, I said, he loves his God, he loves his family, and he loves Freemasonry.
In terms, and we've talked with the Grand Commander about some of the things that make him proud. What are some of the other things that have made you proud about your experience within, again, we're using that broad term, that lodge life, that fraternal life, if you will. Mm-hmm. What are the things that have made you proud, whether it's stuff that he's done, that you've done together, or things that just you've done, but especially the things you've done? Because you've done quite a lot. I've got a long list in my pocket.
Well, I don't really think about it as things I've done, because I just did it because I wanted to or I needed to. So it's hard for me to say, hey, I did this, I did that. I know that when he was Grand Master, the lady before me, my good friend Evelyn, was the first time that Grand Master's ladies had pins. Hers was one of the first. And then they're like, oh, what are you going to do for your pin? I'm like, I don't know. I have to have a pin. And mine was very basic because it was so new. And I did a square and compass, and I did a little ribbon under it. It says Women Support Masons. And I would have never thought that doing that when he was Grand Master, that I'd be doing any of this, and it's still true. Women do support Masons. And then as some of the other ladies came along, I helped them design their pins, which was kind of fun, because I'm kind of like when I worked at Virginia Tech, I did their career planning guide, and I did a lot of graphic design and different things like that. So job fairs and stuff like that. So I was the creative one trying to get people to do different things, yeah.
When someone asks you, what do Freemasons do? What do Scottish Rite Masons do? What is your response to that? What does a Scottish Rite Mason do? What does a Freemason do?
I know what I tell other people when I see them that are not familiar with Masonry or Scottish Rite Masonry in particular. I'll say, "You've never heard of Masonry?" And they'll say no. And I said, well, Masonry is a fraternity for men where they become brothers and they have this bond. And I said, Masonry takes good men and makes them better. For Scottish Rite, when I see people, because most people haven't heard of Scottish Rite, I say, have you heard of the Shriners? And everybody's heard of the Shriners because they have lots of publicity and stuff like that. I said, well, to become a Scottish Rite Mason, you have to be a member of the Blue Lodge. And then when you're in the Blue Lodge, you can do both, or you can choose one or the other. You can become a Shriner, or you can become a Scottish Rite Mason. And I said, a Scottish Rite Mason does good things for children, like the Shriners. They help children who have speech, hearing, dyslexia, autism. They help those children. They provide scholarships for students as well, especially students who want to help with learning disabilities and hearing, graduate students, that type of thing. And I said, the Scottish Rite Masons are like a family. I said, they're like a second family to me.